do it once we started.
Okay. That's what you're saying.
I'll set this side.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there we go. A very, very good evening. Warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick and Pay, and not for the first time. I am in the palatial 17-bedroom residence of Mr. David Higgs, multiple South African Chef of the Year, top amateur cyclist, and a man who's had his fair share of fine Namibian wine. David, good evening.
Thanks for joining me.
Let's let me shift up a touch, and you shift up a little bit as well, so we're nice and cuddly. We've got an absolute cracker of a show. I'm not sure I've ever been this excited for the guest lineup that we have, and I'll be introducing them in just a moment. Before we do that, before I get your thoughts on the topic tonight, which I'm so genuinely thrilled about, let's explain to everybody why, even by our own sartorially masterful standards, we are looking quite exceptional in our respective wardrobes tonight.
Eh?
Yes. Pretty good.
I'm impressed.
Why are we wearing these?
Sorry.
Genuine question.
So we are doing an event for DHL. After the show, after tasting 10 different cabs from the Stellenbosch region, we're going to be doing a Mexican evening with DHL, starting off with tequila. So Mondays couldn't get better.
Indeed, they couldn't. So I'm not sure if this really qualifies as Mexican, but it's as close as I get. Yours is definitely Mexican, and that Mexican night is to come with the DHL team from around the world. Very excited about that, but genuinely looking forward to the next hour. And what we're doing, and I remember when I mentioned this to you, you had a big smile on your face, because it's both a part of the world and a varietal that we're both enormously fond of. 2015 versus 2017, the art of Cabernet Sauvignon. I was chatting to Rudger van Wyk from Condé. He's one of our guests this evening a few weeks back, and we're having this conversation. Is 15 better? Is 17 better? 15 exploded. It was showy and garish and glitzy, and this is the best ever. And then 17 just quietly started making an impression, and now there's a genuine case to be made for it having even surpassed 15. So what an opportunity to taste 10 of these tonight in the presence of 5 great winemakers.
Absolutely. I mean, cab is my favorite varietal for sure. And Stellenbosch region is cab country, as Mike will tell us. So yeah, I'm really excited. Obviously, Stellenbosch also has different slopes in different areas, so it's lovely to be able to compare. And yeah, very excited. And a few really good mates who always support us in the restaurant and who I've had the pleasure of working with as well.
All right, well, let's meet them all. Ronaldo, if we can bang everybody up on screen and say hello in no particular order to Morné Vrey and his red cap from Delaire, Graff, to Strydom, who is not only the CEO and winemaker at Ernie else, but also helps Ernie out with his papa. He's very good with the short game. Rudger van Wyk, former young winemaker of the year and the man who kickstarted this all. Christo, Riche, who's inherited his father's magical touch when it comes to making Cabernet Sauvignon. And someone who's on the show not that long ago, Abrie Beeslaar, who's looking obscenely relaxed for somebody who's supposed to be in the middle of harvest, David.
I think he's at his beach house. I think I recognize that place.
Welcome to all of you, and it's a real treat to have all of you on the show. So let's plunge straight in. We've got 2 vintages, 15 and 17, that we're going to be tasting from each of you. And we want to go through all of those and try and get a sense of what each year has to offer and why one might be superior to the other, if indeed we can make that call. But let's set the scene a little first up. And Louis, if I can start with you, because we've known each other for a very long time. You're in part of the winemaking world that just screams out red, and Cabernet Sauvignon from Ernie else, and before that, Rust and Vrey has been something that you've put together quite majestically. Explain to people who maybe aren't overly familiar with what terroir means, why a certain area makes a certain grape so well. What is it about your stretch of Stellenbosch that just allows you to make this magnificent Cabernet Sauvignon so consistently?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Terroir is the fingerprint where the wine comes from, and it really shows your environment. And I always say it's exactly the same with people. You are your environment. That's very much what Cabernet does on the Helderberg. We're mid slopes on the Helderberg with these north-facing slopes, that means we have these long summer days. Which is just perfect for the ripening of Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon is a late ripener, so we need these long summers and summer days, and that's what these northern slopes does. So obviously, with these deep soils that we have on the Helderberg, It's also just really good with a bit of these granites as well, stable mountain granites that we have, really well drained, and that's just as perfect for the king of reds, Cabernet Sauvignon, in the Stellenbosch region. So, but as you said, we have different regions on tasting today from the Stellenbosch, and each one's got their own specific flavor profile that's exceptional. Dan.
Abrie, your spot is also just so celebrated for red wine. Pinotage being a big highlight, we know you particularly for it. So it's got to be something pretty amazing that's dragging you away from Pinotage and making some Cabernet Sauvignon, wonderful Cabernets. What's your region's key? What affords you the opportunity, Abrie, to really get Cabernet Sauvignon just right?
Yeah, I'm very privileged to work with Pinotage and Cabernet. And the guys before me already figured out that's the varietals that works consistently better in this area. But also granite soils, decomposed granites. I feel the Simonsburg site, and you can see it all around the Simonsburg. There's wines being made that have similarities, but it's almost like it's just far enough from the ocean that we get quite warm days and cool nights, which is very important for producing quality Cabernets. Then, 46C clone that we work with also plays an important role. And Louis can perhaps, expand on that. He's done a lot of work on clonal different clones. But it is, soils that's not too vigorous. I think that's important for Cabernet Sauvignon. Proper canopy management, with Cabernet, you need to do your bit in the vineyards. And then I'm also very lucky to work with, different aged Cabernets from, 40 years down to 5 years. And all of that brings complexity to the final wine.
And it's a complexity we're going to see in the wine in just a moment. Before we get a quick update from our chef, Rudger, talk to us about your part of Stellenbosch, the Jonkershoek. There's a whole range of wine you make, but you also seem to have really found your stride with Cabernet Sauvignon. There are a couple of different ones that you make, but again, it seems to be a wine that you not only do so well, but you also have a really personal passion for.
Yeah, Dan. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Condé is based in the beautiful Jonkershoek Valley, and I'm really fortunate to actually be working here in this beautiful valley. It's so amazing actually walking in here every day between the vineyards. What makes us special is our elevation of the vineyards, working with different elevations against the mountain slopes, north facing to northwest facing slopes, really good drain actually to work with grapes that's basically the same age as myself and even younger. So we have a rule that you always have to stand up and show respect to grapes or wines that are older than you. It's really amazing working with nature and all these different clones and soil types and slopes. So both working with Cabernet Sauvignon at Condé.
Morné, let's head over to your part of town, just over the hill. And I've spent a little bit of time in Delaire in the last year or so and had a thoroughly enjoyable time of it. The wine that you make falls into the broader category of Stellenbosch Cabernet Sauvignon. But are we at a stage where you can really define and say, well, this is a Beinhoek Cabernet Sauvignon, for instance, that's very distinct and very clearly one, as opposed to a wine coming out of Jonkershoek?
Yeah, Dan, thanks. Dan, it's always nice to be on your show. Yeah, I think the Beinhoek is quite special and similar to that of Rudger with the altitude. And we do have quite a high altitude. Our vineyard starts about 380 meters, go all the way up to 540. So we do have quite a bit of that altitude that helps. I mean, this year probably not so great with the late rain that we have and the cool weather. So we do tend to have a 2.5 week later ripening than Stellenbosch Valley. But the key up here in the Beinhoek is also red fruit. Our soils are, again, well drained. I mean, we've done some brilliant work in the vineyard. And this vineyard that we're quite known for in Cabernet is one of the old French clone 169, very kind of feminine, red fruit-driven clone. And I'm a big fan of this clone. It particularly works very well in the soils. The soils are a bit vigorous, so you need to do quite a lot of work in the vineyard to kind of just really kind of control the vigor. And yeah, the wine always produced soft tannins, always those red fruit spectrum rather than the black fruit. And also, to be very character for the area is also our tannin structure is much more softer, more velvety than, say, that of the Helderberg or somewhere else. So this, you have to be careful. Sometimes you want to over extract during the ferment to get more tannins, but I mean the good average tannin in a Bannock is rather quite pleasant. Next time.
Wine I've had plenty of from a winemaker who nobody's actually ever seen the top of his head. Do you know, that's never been seen, that red cap firmly in place for a Morné. One last winemaker to speak to, Etienne. Etienne, Christo, I have this vision of you kind of being bottle-fed Cabernet Sauvignon as a 3-month-old kid, as your legendary father made some more. There was almost no doubt ever that you were going to do anything but continue your dad's legacy of making extraordinarily good Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, that's Dan. That's actually quite true. I must say, my dad didn't actually start me out on Cabernet. I think that was quite wise. It's probably something with a little bit more structure. He actually started me out on Cabernet Cinsault blends, which was just that little bit softer. So when I was about a year old, he suckled me on that, and then when I was about 6, we switched over to like real Cabernets. And then by the age of 9, we were getting onto the more aged things like the 1984 Rustenburgs and like that kind of stuff. So yeah, I must say, a good, easy, young introduction to good wines. I mean, that's really what all of us dream of.
I think Etienne might have joined Homer Simpson as my fatherhood parent icon. Wonderful wine. We've got 5 terrific winemakers here, and we're going to dive into this wine in a second. David, most people know you as this award-winning chef, and they know you from the food side, but you're so passionate about the wine. Stellenbosch Cabernet Sauvignon, from your perspective, you've drunk wine from all over the world. What makes it stand out? What makes it say, David, I just want more of this?
So I'm going to start off by saying that I've recently had the pleasure of drinking a 2002 Thelema Cab. Or Thelema Cab. Anyway, and yeah, exactly. So I've always been a massive fan of the Thelema Cabs, and I've always, and since Rust and Vrey as well. Cooney made I can't remember what year it was, but Cooney made that award-winning cab when I was still there. I think it was just 2009 or something like that. Anyway, but I am a big fan of a slightly leaner wine. I don't like the big fruit bombs, and I do find that the Stellenbosch region lends itself to that. So yeah, and especially the aged ones. I couldn't believe the 02. We've recently got the 07 and the 08 as well from Thelema. So yeah, drinking incredibly well, and yeah, as I said, I just have an affinity to the wines, definitely.
All right, well, let's go into those wines. I'm going to start with the 15s. And Morné, we're going to run through this in alphabetical order, just so that the Cabernet Collective sees this as a scientifically and properly done presentation. So the 2015 Delaire Graff. And Morné, give us an introduction to this vintage and then to this particular wine.
No, thanks. I mean, we all think 15 was like one of the greatest cab vintages, and we've actually been doing a lot of tastings to international media and also showcasing the 15 vintage as a good quality Stellenbosch cab. And yes, it's not some, and Delaire, it was the same. We made a brilliant wine. It was after the 14 vintage that was a very hard and tough vintage. 15 was actually quite a bit of an easy vintage for us. Even the whites, they all just ripened at the right time. There was no real heat or cold stress or kind of issues of the harvest. And it was really quite a breeze of a harvest. But at the same time, it also produced brilliant wines. I mean, the 15 for us, a bit more on the riper style than compared to the 17. But yeah, it's very kind of classical Bannock cab. There's not a lot of tannin, as I mentioned previously. Just a very kind of soft, and tasting the wine now, it's got a very bit of a lovely earthiness that just really kind of showcased the vintage that was so special.
15 off to an absolute flying start there from Delaire Graff. Let's move down to the other side of Stellenbosch and Ernie else, and +6 handicap golfer Louis Strydom. Louis, your 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon, which I've had plenty of it. Give us the official introduction, if you will.
Yes, it was a clutch putt, as they say, in the hole. For the 2015 vintage, and when you work with nature, it's forever changing. You never know what it's going to throw your way. And 2015 was one of those vintages that you just when you come into the, I call it when you just come into the bay in the harbor, and there's just plain sailing right in, and the wines just show themselves. And we spoke about it just now. The Helderberg can give you so much that you really got to be careful of pushing the boundaries too far. But this was just that vintage that just came in such a smooth. And I think for me, it's about the weight of the wine that comes through. When you smell a wine, you get all these lovely flavors. But when you finish, the last thing that leaves your palate is that weight of the wine and that length and the depth of the 2015 vintage. And I think it's showing so wonderfully our terroir from the Helderberg, about that weight. And a lot of people say, that they shy well about too much weight from a wine, but it's showing our character. And I think when we tasted 2017, it was a little bit different. And I think that is what the 2015 vintage does. It shows true Helderberg character, that like blueberry, blackberry, and that darker flavors, and then the palate weight that runs through in the core of the wine. Dan?
2 down, same vintage, same grade, but gee, 2 very different wines.
Yeah, dry finish on that beautiful tannin. Yeah, it's that's the beauty of wine, and food is exactly the same. You give a chef the same ingredients, and you tell them to cook the same meal, and you get 2 different things. Just by the addition of a few things, and obviously what, as Louis said, what nature gives us. Very exciting.
Number of people watching. Grant Sauls, great lineup, Dan. Good to see Chef Higgs on the show again. Grant, thank you for watching over on YouTube. Wellington Muromba, thanks, Dan, for putting these wine legends in one space. The interesting part is they're blessed with the diversity of terroir, allowing them to express unique styles and quality of SA wines in their different regions. Wellington, you've got that spot on. We've shown that with just 2 so far. Let's drift over to the Beach House, where Abrie has got 11 kilograms of Perlemoen waiting to go on the braai. Abrie, the 25 Kanonkop, talk us through it.
Yeah, thank you. It's quite chilly here at the Beach House. Just closed the window. But I needed a good red to warm up. So the 15 for me was a spectacular vintage. When we look at Cabernet, we're quite serious about it. It's much more about, texture, structure, fruit expression, than just trying to make a style that we think is Kanonkop. So 15 gave us all of that. We didn't have to do much. We didn't have to think much. It was an interesting vintage. 14, the previous vintage was quite wet, big yielding vintage. Then 15 came. We had a proper winter, and then what I think really played a big role in the vintage was November, the 12th of November, we had about 65 millimeters of rain, and that's the time when a lot of people think about irrigation or don't irrigate, and here it was all natural. So quite a lot of rain early in the season, and then December, much more stress, drier winds, drying out the vineyards. But I do like that, bigger amount of water or rain at, in the early part of the season. Then no significant heat waves, which is also always a challenge in South Africa. We have a very short ripening period. So if you have these, 4 or 5 days between 35 and 40 degrees or even higher, it really pushed up the sugar accumulation. We didn't see any of that in 15. So when you look at the wine, and I've said it a lot, we don't try to duplicate Bordeaux in any way, but vintages like 15 do give us something close to that. It's much more of an international style wine, dark fruit, big structure, dry finish, and which is also, I think, trademark Kanonkop is that savory dry tannins you find at the end of the wine, just really salivating and goes, really goes well with proper food. And that's what I find in 15. For me, exceptional vintage, and creating styles of wine that you can't duplicate it in any other year. It's vintage related, and I really enjoy that.
Which might give you a clue as to whether Abrie is favouring the 15 or the 17. I think this 15 from Kanonkop is absolutely superb. Forget that Paul sour rubbish. Buy the Cabernet Sauvignon. Way, way better. Cracking wine. I'm trying to drive the price of Pulsar down so I can buy some.
I can see that.
It's all very deliberate. All right, lovely wine, Abrie. Let's head over now to Riche and to Christo, the infant suckled on Cinsault Cab blends. What a wonderful young man he is as a result. Christo, your 2015, if you will.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I'm going to agree with a lot of the comments that have already come through, where I think what made both 15 and 17 so special was just that we had such beautiful, consistent weather going throughout the growing season, especially coming in from January. So being in Stellenbosch in South Africa, we do have our heat waves coming through, and those vintages where we have none, like 15 and 17, is really where we get some of our best fruit coming in. And then also when the night temperatures stay warm, we're running into March, we don't get too early winter setting in. And they always say great Cabernet has to be picked in the autumn. And that's very much what we had in both those vintages. So yeah, I must say I love both 15s and 17s. It's hard for me to talk about one or the other. What I love about 15 specifically is there's attention to the wines, which just brings me a little bit closer to your more Bordelais style. So it's got restraint, some savory fruit. You'll get some fynbos, which is really typical from our area down in Stellenbosch on the wines, but there's enough ripe fruits for it to be nice and lush and plush as well, and really give you everything you're looking for in a wine. So with this 15 Cabernet of ours, I'm not working with a specific region. For example, with Louis who's sitting up on the Helderberg or Abrie on the Simonsberg, we actually work with vineyards coming from all around Stellenbosch. So for 2015, we've got some fruit coming from the Jonkershoek Valley, a little bit from the Helderberg as well, Upper Helderberg. And then we work with a lot of fruit from what we call kind of the poor man's region in Stellenbosch, which is the lower slopes of the Helderberg. So like Louis, whenever he tees off up at any else, then his ball falls into our dam at the bottom if he gets a good drive in.
You can't drive
so
that far.
We're on the downslope really from those guys, but we get all the good runoff. We've got some beautiful soils with not a lot of vigor in them, and giving us really nice ripeness that we can work with, and some amazing older vines that have been coming for a long period of time. So yeah, basically that 15 we've really made and crafted towards a wine that you can enjoy it when it's a little bit younger, but you can also put it down, sell it at 10, 15 years. This wine now is only at 6 or 7 years. It's still a little puppy. I think it can go quite a lot longer than it is now. And yeah, definitely one of the best that I've ever worked with in my short career.
Yeah.
It's that holy grail of South African wine, isn't it? Buy wine that people can drink now because a lot of people want to.
Yeah.
But if you've got the patience, the resources, the willpower to stick it away, open it up 15 years later, and something that's already absolutely banging is just going to explode.
Absolutely. And I think, this is maybe where times are changing. I think those previous vintages, like probably 1980, you struggle with the South African vintages that are that old. But now the 90s, the 2000s, geez, man, those wines are drinking so well. But I love the savoriness on the wine, as Christo was saying.
And that little nudge of fynbos as well, that little herbaceous feel to it. There was mention there that some of the grapes come from Jonkershoek. Doubtless, Rudger will explain that is why the Riche wine is so good, because some of it does come from Jonkershoek. Rudger, let's head over to you for the first of your two wines. It is our Three Pines Cabernet Sauvignon. Please give it a suitable introduction.
I was actually wondering if that wasn't Christo that we saw in the vineyard stealing some of that Jonkershoek grapes there.
Yes.
To be quite honest, I actually started after the 2015 harvest at Condé. It was probably done by Jose Condé, but I was part of the blending process. I think there's not a lot to add to these amazing winemakers' comments. The climatic conditions was perfect. It felt like everything just fell into place with the rain, with a bit of heat wave. And I might say that 2015 is a typical Condé vintage. I think just with a bit more richness, a bit more body, the acid being a touch lower, which I think is really good for early consumption. But I also think this is a wine that you can really lay down for also, like the guy said, 10, 15 years. and it will show really well. Yeah.
Who made this wine? Just out of interest. Jose.
Yeah. So you probably know where my thoughts are, because the 17 I made, so I'll probably have to lean to the 17 then. Eh?
All right, well, we're about to charge into those. That's just juicy and big and luscious and glorious wine. And I love the fact, because I get asked, I'm sure you get asked a million times, oh, David, what's your favorite type of food? I get asked, hey, what's your favorite wine? And it's impossible. And even here, I've got 5 Cabernet Sauvignons. They're all different. Yeah. And yet each one has got something so special to recommend it.
And food and wine, it's also very much on your mood at the time. You know, what do you feel like? I mean, as Abrie sitting by the beach house at the moment, you know, just wanting something to relax, and you know, your mood is different to when maybe you're in the big city. And I just again, it's lovely to have options.
Also, of course, depends on which floor of the beach house Abrie's on. That will probably affect which cellar he's moving into. Before we dive into the 17, Reginald Peckler is watching from Cheetah Plains.
Oh, really?
Up in Sabi. 2015 is immaculate exuberance, but 2017 is one of a kind, elegant and powerful. So going forward, we have a tale to share. My story begins like I was there. Well, talking of being there, you're going to be catching up with the Reginald rather soon, aren't you?
Reggie, I'll see you on Saturday, my friend. I'm going to be coming there for a couple of days. So looking forward to that.
And for
best you stock that cellar, my friend.
It is a superb cellar. I'm sure it's got some 15. I'm sure it's got some 17. Let's head to that 17 and go back to Morné. Morné, you've taken us through the 15. Run us into the 17. And I know we've had a similar conversation. We did something with the Bannock team, with yourselves, with Oldenburg and Bartney last year. But give us this 17, the comparison, the contrast, and which way the man in the red cap is leaning.
Yeah, and 17 for me is a very special vintage. I just really enjoyed the making. The growing was just fantastic. We had very cool evenings. Again, similar as easy harvest as was 15. But if I have to lean towards a favorite, I'm kind of going a bit more to the 17 in my stylistic approach. Very much kind of a perfumed kind of red fruit. The one is a little bit nervous at the moment, still kind of. But I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised in 5 years' time to compare the two again, 15 versus 17. I think some of the 17s might maybe kick some of the 15s butts a bit. Very kind of, for me, very perfumey, very structured. The wine is a little bit nervous for me at the moment still, but I mean, it's still very young. But I think it's a bit of a wine that it's a bit unfair at the moment to really kind of have an opinion, because I think it's just so young still.
Yeah, I think effectively what you're trying to say, Morné, is it is young. It looks fantastic, but it is a bit nervous. It's kind of like a Miss South Africa finalist on her first date with David Higgs. That's kind of a particular wine is sitting. I have to say with Morné, and I remember, I think it might even been the first time I'd met Morné, and he said to me in that sort of quiet, measured way of his that he thought 17 might be better than 15. I thought, Muppets, how can you possibly say this? 15 is the greatest vintage in the history of the world ever. And then I tasted 17, and then I tasted some other 17s, and then I slowly started, I don't know if yours was the same. After 15 rocked the world, nothing could be better. And then 17 just slowly started talking to you a little.
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, Dan, I'm not really familiar with all the vintages and everything else. I can definitely say I'm also leaning towards the 17. Beautiful dry finish. I'm with you on that one.
All right, well, let's head back to the semi-professional golfer and find out how 15 and 17 compare in the land of Ernie else, Mr. Strydom.
Yeah, Dan, the 15 is a little bit like probably like a 4-day golf tournament. When you come out and you play a 65 on the Thursday, you haven't won the tournament yet. And I think that was the 2015. It came out so quick and showed the power and the fullness and the ability of that wine. But as these two vintages will age, you will start seeing the cream will definitely flow to the top. And on the definitely on this 2017 for Ernie else specifically, it was for us. the little bit more restrainedness means we get definitely a red fruit component than we previously like the 2015 is much more darker, richer fruit. So this has got a great purity of Cabernet, our 2017. And it's interesting on the 2017 vintage, I had a certain amount of wine in my mind that I wanted a bottle. Then I said, when we spoke to Ernie and the team, I said, we such a great vintage. We actually should sell this wine. We should sell our wines a little bit later in the market. So we actually bottled quite a lot more than we normally did on this 2017 vintage. And I'm so happy that we did that, because there's such a great vintage, and this wine is going to be going to last that for many decades, definitely. And people love asking you, how long can a wine age? And Cabernet's got those implicit tannins, that give it the ability to age. And if you look at those top Bordeaux, all based on Cabernet Sauvignons, those Medoc wines, and it's the ability of the wine to look after itself with those tannin content, which Cabernet's got. And using on Ernie with the different clones we've got, we use 9 different clones to put this wine together. And I think each little building block makes this wine special. It's not all about just having Cabernet in your vineyard and saying, well, let's harvest Cabernet. It's about all those different components that you put together, and it's like a puzzle. You throw the puzzle on the table, and you have these little bits and pieces, and you don't actually see the picture. And you start putting those little pieces together, and then they all fall into place, and then you get close to Cabernet perfection, which was the 27 vintage tan.
It's a wonderful, wonderful analogy. They're quite similar to food, except that you actually do the work, Louis, whereas David's got 11 sous chefs who do it all for him. So very different space. Louis, before we let you go on this particular wine, just give me an understanding. We've got 2 very different labels here. I know the major series has come out. There's also the proprietors range. Just for people out in the market who are watching, how are the wines positioned now? What sits where? Big Easy, major series, proprietors. How does it all work in the Ernie range at the moment?
Yeah, Dan, we on the farm, we reassessed our portfolio and decided to really have much more strategic focus on Cabernet Sauvignon. And so we culled about 4 wines out of the portfolio. So the whole proprietors range, the Sauvignon Blanc is also culled out of the portfolio. So at the top, we have our signature, which is the Bordeaux blend. Then we have the major series, which is a Cabernet and a Merlot, and then the Big Easy range, with the Big Easy Red, and the Big Easy Cab, which is a Cabernet Cinsault, and the Big Easy Rosé, which is a Cabernet Rosé. So, like I said, it's all the world of Cabernet up at Ernie House now, and that's just the refocus of the property to our strengths.
And all on a property that's been redone and is looking magnificent. You've of course got quite a personal relationship because you guys spent a lot of time together, didn't you?
Yeah, I just wish that Louis could stay on his bike longer, and he keeps breaking something. Every time I ride with him, he falls off his bloody bike. Hey, Louis, how are things going on the biking front?
Just remember, from Ernie it's all downhill, so it's pretty easy. But I think I need to get an e-bike now. That's 50 plus something. Don't frown on me. Everybody's having e-bikes.
Oh dear. Another comment from Reginald Peck. Abrie, I was watching and paying a lot of attention to you some time ago when you spoke to Tim Atkin. I'm quite chuffed on how you lay your attention in all your range, indelible. Adding to that, thanks Dan for bringing all these wine legends today. Well, the pleasure is absolutely mine. It's a great collection. Abrie, your second wine. It shows, I think, the degree to which you guys age, in that my bottle of 2017 is nude, which is a technical term for wine without a label. So you're obviously keeping it for a while before release. How's it looking? How's it sitting? How do you feel about 2017, Abrie?
Yeah, by the sound of it, most guys are preferring the 17 vintage. So we haven't sold 17 yet. So from a marketing point of view, it's probably the better wine. But as for me personally, I would, I really enjoy the 17. You have it in front of you. We do 2 years in the barrel and 2 years in the bottle before you release it. Just because the Cabernets here take time, and the style we make takes time. And over the years, we just realized, if we want to give our customers the best experience, then we need to mature the wine a little bit more. We do make the wine in quite a big structured style, and the reason for that is that's what we believe in. I would love to use the word finesse on the cabernet on the 17 because I think it has that. But nowadays there's too many people just using finesse for something that's quite thin and too light, and which is for me a big concern when it comes to quality wine. But 17 for me, like somebody like Jan Boland would say, this is a pretty vintage. So it's a really pretty wine and a pretty vintage. It shows all the qualities I think a good South African Cabernet can have in a good vintage, but it does not have for me that extra. And Bayer will always talk about the third dimension. And everybody will always nod their head. Yeah, they know. And when you ask them what the third dimension is, nobody knows what it means. So, but the 15 does have something for me that's almost more of a next level of complexity. Where the 17 is more easier to recognize. It's pretty vintage. Sorry,
almost obvious. It's a little bit
almost obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, you take it from the shelf, you put it on the table, everybody's happy, that type of wine. Where the 15 will invite you back to the glass, say, listen, what's going on here? That type of wine. For me, that is a bit more intriguing. But both excellent vintages. 17 was in the middle of the dry spell we had, in the middle of the drought. We had about, I think, a little bit less than 500 millimeters of rain that year. But what saved the vintage was cool evenings in February during the ripening. So we had significant cooler evenings where the plants had time to recover during the relatively warm days, which I think saved the vintage. So from a vintage perspective, I still think 15 vintage-wise is better, just from the growing conditions. But 17 for me, I'm very happy how it turned out. 16, when you put 15, 16, and 17 next to each other, you realize how good 17 really is. But you want me to choose one? So, like I said, if I have my marketing hat on, 17. If you ask me alone in my house, I'll tell you 15 for me.
All right. Well, we'll keep that to just us, and nobody else finds out about it, Abrie. I have to say, it's hell of a close. It's kind of David Higgs versus Jan Hendrik. There's almost nothing in it. But if I look at the first two, the Delaire, the Ernie, the 17, maybe just shaded it. But the moment I drank that 15, there's just something about it that just grabs your attention.
Definitely. I'm glad I'm sort of agreeing with the winemakers on their vintages, both with Morné and again with Abrie as well. So it's nice when you, as you said, when you go back to the glass and you just you try and figure it out, especially with someone who's not in wine. You try and figure it out, and that's the conversation starter, and then you're talking about a good wine.
Also, you referred to the beauty of wine earlier, being these differences and the mystery and the intrigue. And here are 5 wines that are, maybe in Louis' case, drive a 3-wood from each other mostly. And yet each one is not only different, but different vintages have brought the very best out of each one in different ways. And we've had a great collection so far. Let's head over to Cabernet Sauvignon HQ and the latest man in charge of the Riche Empire. Christo, we've had your thoughts on 15. How does 17 shape up?
I love them both. So if you ask me this question on our reserve, I'll be tipping probably towards our 17. On the Cabernets, which you're drinking now, I'll be tipping probably towards the 15. And I think it's me just there's two different approaches in the two vintages. So 15, I would kind of describe as the wines that we have are more vintage expressive. So they just really showcase what 2015 was all about. The wines are leaner. They've got this beautiful ageability and attention to them, and they're almost quiet and reserved within our portfolio specifically. And they need that time to just showcase themselves. And I think our 2015 Cabernet has that. Where with the 17 again, I found there was just a little bit more lushness. The wines are friendlier. We were able to pick a little bit later into the season, so there's this beautiful ripeness. And on our 17 cab, we actually blended in about 15% from the Simonsberg. So if you consider what Abrie told us, just those wines that are, it just gives that little bit more tension and linearity to the wine, which needs a little bit more time. But I had a bit more lushness and fruit coming through in 17. So that little bit of a Simonsberg component just helped to knit this wine together so well. So yeah, to express Stellenbosch as a region, I really think my 17 is on the 17 Cabernet is the one I really love and I'll use. Where if I want to express a specific vintage, then I think the 15 is a little bit more expressive and a little bit more unique in a sense. So, wow, it really depends on what my mood is on the evening as to which one I'm going to go for.
It's very similar to asking Nas Buerta for his opinion on rugby at half time. I think I've been the team with the most points. And yet it's a fair answer, Christo, because there's so much in both wines. There's so much in both vintages that it's not just this black and white, okay, 10 points here, 8 points there. It's so much more detailed.
Yeah, I'm blown away again. I just I'm so excited about this. I'm getting more and more into it. I don't know if I can be more and more hammered, but I get more and more into this. So yeah.
All right, Lisa Harlow checking in from the UK. This is fascinating. The answer is you need both in your cellar and patience. You certainly do. Patience probably the trickiest one of all. You got such great wine to select. Let's head over then to the Jonkershoek and our former Diners Club Young Winemaker of the Year, and I suspect one of our next Cape Winemakers Guild members. Rudger, the first one, the 15, was obviously so bad they had to bring you in instead to fix it all. How have you fixed it? What have you done with the 17?
I think, the 15 vintage was really great. And I think the last time we had this discussion, I leaned 100% to the 2017. I think it's a really good expression of what we tried to do at Stock Condé, where we tried to balance elegance and power. I think in total, it's just so much more balanced, the wine. And it's really enjoyable. I think Abrie was also talking about a third dimension in a way. And I think there's a little bit of that in the 17 vintage from the Jonkershoek. Like I said, I think that special touch, that extra drop of sweat in the 17 vintage probably tipped the pot at the end of the day.
Okay, so that would have the salinity to the wine, just that little Rudger sweat coming through.
Yeah.
It's terrific, and I think it's just one of the many reasons, Rudger, why you are held in such esteem as one of the rising stars of winemaking. Before we go to a big mass screen and get a last thumbs up from everybody, I just want to go back to each winemaker quickly. And Morné, I'll start with you. Just two quick questions. One is an assessment of your current vintage harvest, how it's looking, how you're feeling, and then just going forward, your thoughts on Stellenbosch Cabernet Sauvignon, kind of where it's going, where you feel that the role for Cab Sav is in the South African wine story.
Yeah, thanks. 21 great vintage to start. I mean, the whites were brilliant. We had 2 weeks in the harvest now that I felt like it was winning the lottery. Just the fruit was fantastic. The analysis was brilliant. So I'm super excited so far that we got in cellar. Unfortunately, the rain on Wednesday and Tuesday night kind of put a pause button on the harvest so far. But some of the rest that we got in already is brilliant. The color is, on Merlot, we got brilliant colors, good tannin structure. And so it's looking very good. I think let's have a chat again over 3 weeks from now, and then we'll see how all the other fruit that's still hanging. But I'm very optimistic. I mean, if we got the quality already that we see now, and like Abrie also mentioned, we probably have to pick a bit earlier. But yeah, so it's quite exciting. And yeah, Stellenbosch Cab, we've been doing a lot of work with Cab. I mean, Christo and the team and everybody's like, we see that we've got something really special here, and Stellenbosch Cabernet is really unique. From an area within South Africa, and we also see all this kind of diverse flavors from the different areas. Louis and Helderberg, and that kind of more richer, crunchier, Gabs and Abrie and the Kanonkop side, the Simonsberg area. So it's just the valley is just so diverse, and we just use them. And I think I can agree with Christo on the differences between 15 and 17. Like the 17 really kind of shows the what Stellenbosch Cabernet is almost about. So it's really kind of a vintage, like a great kind of flag to hang for Stellenbosch Cabernet. Yeah. So quite exciting, and I think we all still keep trying hard and continuing to make great and brilliant cabs here in Stellenbosch.
I think the vintage comment is hugely applicable. I think we've also, though, got 5 estates here who form part of many in Stellenbosch who just do that whole Cabernet story such a huge service. Louis, if we head over to you, quick thought on your current vintage, the harvest and where it stands, and then where you see the journey of Cabernet Sauvignon going forward.
The 2021 vintage, I don't know else is maiden vintage in the new revamped winery. So for us, it's really been a little bit of a new journey that's starting with 2021 vintage. You know, we brought some terracotta pots in, we brought some Nicovelo concrete tanks in, and we're using stainless steel fermentation as well. So I think we're really excited about our new fermentation cellar and the techniques that we can apply to the Cabernet Sauvignon, because we've done so much work in the vineyards with planting. Like I said, we have 9 different Cabernet clones now in the vineyard, each vinified now separately and brought in. And so from a 2021 vintage has been really, for us, been really good. During February, we had relatively cool weather. We had like a spike that last week of Feb, early March, and that kicked everything into overdrive, especially on the Shirazes and the early Cabernets. And so we got a lot of our Cabernets in, and then came the rain last week, and then that just slowed everything down again. So it's going to be, I think it's definitely, it's a vintage of 2 halves, and we'll see those producers that could sit it out and could reap the rewards. But it's going to be drying up for the next week or so. So we really hope that, we're on a knife edge at the moment, especially with the older Cabernets within Stellenbosch. We're only halfway through March, and like Christo said, the best Cabernets are made towards the end of autumn and of halves, and we need that weather now. So far so good. I also agree, the great colors and great intensity that I see in the vineyard. So Cabernet Sauvignon, we spoke about it just now, how we think of Cabernet Sauvignon and what we plan to do with Cabernet on specifically Ernie else and going forward. So we've put all our money in the hat. We're on the table, and we're willing to stand behind Cabernet Sauvignon because it just naturally does really well. And I think that is what you always have to do. You have to play towards your strength. You don't try and do something that you aren't. And Cabernet and Stellenbosch are synonymous with each other. And we really need to start building those different batches, start building those different terroir regions, start building those different flavor profiles. And there is diversity within Stellenbosch. And that's the great thing about Stellenbosch, with the mountain ranges and the proximity to the oceans. We've got such a biodiversity that we can make many different Cabernets in a very, very small area. And we need to stand for something, and that's Cabernet, Stellenbosch. Dan.
It's a stand you're making very powerfully, and just such lovely wine. And I love that investment, that vote of faith. This is what we're good at. Kind of like when you open Marble and realized I can do a steakhouse, and I think it worked brilliantly. Let's head over to Abrie. Abrie, just very quickly, your current vintage, which is obviously long gone because your feet are up and the cigars are open, but then also your Cabernet Sauvignon position.
Yeah, it's 2021 is it looks so far like a fantastic vintage. Some of the latest pickings we've done, especially with the earlier varietals like Pinotage, well, some of them were about 2 weeks late. So quite a late vintage. So we're running into difficulties now with the weather changing. But still, I think the potential is there. It still looks really, really good. It seems like we're going to have less tannins in 2021. Tests that we've done also by tasting in the vineyards. The skins are already very soft from an early stage, so it seems like the tannin levels will be a little bit lower. And then I think, we have to be quite, make difficult decisions when it comes to picking, not being scared of picking too early. At 13 or 13.5% alcohol, I think we're going to see more of those cabernets as well. But it's all positive when it comes to consuming Cabernet in the bigger scheme of things. I think it's going to make really approachable styles of Cabernets, which is good for the general market. When it comes to my feeling around Cabernet in general, I think we have some of the best fruit in the world in South Africa, but we still have a bit of too much of a focus on just the fruit side. So we feel a lot that fruit is the main focus, and if you want to compete on an international level, you have to appreciate all the different flavor components, like the savory part. You have to really, I think, utilize the structure that Cabernet can give you, because it's fantastic. And yeah, make the best possible wine that the terroir offers you, not by your interpretation, but what is considered in world terms to be a great Cabernet. So there's challenges when it comes to that side of it. I see too many very light styles of wine, which is easy to consume, but it becomes confusing in the market. So I believe in Cabernet to have a certain color, have a certain structure, have a certain expression. But that's my personal feeling about it, and how it's going to play out in the future, I'm not sure. But I think if we want to sit around the table with all the big guys in the world, then you need a Cabernet with proper color, with proper structure, and a certain complexity that's not just fruit. You need all the other savory expressions as well. So yeah, I think we have the potential to get there. So we have to back ourselves and just do it.
I think that speaks to what Christo's doing with the Cabernet Collective. So Christo, I'm going to skip you and leave you for the very end for a final comment and jump over to Rudger at Stark Condé. You've given us a wonderful 17. You're still early on in your career making wine. How does your 2021 look? And what's your view of Cabernet Sauvignon going forward?
Yeah, look, I think 2021 is a really exciting vintage. I think everything kicked off really well, super fast, because the vintage was, like everyone said, 2 weeks late. And then everybody just got stuck in. So the whites on the estate looked really good. Yeah, I'm really optimistic about the reds. Yeah, like Abrie said, there's some good color concentration, some good tannins, and I'm really excited actually to take off some of these Cabernets at lower alcohols. I think it will just be good for the image or the cultivar for the consumers. And yeah, it's such a great initiative, this Stellenbosch Cabernet Collective, personally for myself, to work with some of these winemakers, these legends. Actually, some of these guys have taught me everything I know. So yeah, I'm really grateful to always hear their thoughts, always take in. And like they say, you're never too young to learn something new. So yeah, really excited about the collective, and I think we can just go upwards from here.
I think you've got a big role to play in that, as do the other four with us today. Let's get to the last of that quartet. Mr. Christo, it's not just your current vintage, but also for people who don't really know what it is, other than the secret handshakes and the T-shirts you get printed each year. What is the Cabernet Collective? Why is it important?
Well, yeah, I think somehow in Stellenbosch we always get branded with secret collectives and everybody getting together in a little dark corner of the room and discussing world politics. But yeah, we actually just kind of got together as a whole bunch of producers and we said, well, hey, we make good Cabernet. This is what we love. This is what we do well. It's the widest planted grape in Stellenbosch. It's the one varietal that does best in the region. If you have any major Cabernet competition within the South African context, at least 9 out of 10 of those wines are coming from Stellenbosch. So really, we just got together and we said, he has a story to tell. But more than that, we also very much and firmly believe that Cabernet is the one variety in Stellenbosch which can really stand out, and we can pin our flags to it and say this is absolutely world-class wines. And us as South Africans have been so spoilt over the last 40 years of drinking Stellenbosch Cabernets at at amazing prices, and we know what we have, and we drink it, as the whole Joburg market and Cape Town market knows very well. But in the rest of the world, people kind of don't recognize us. We don't really feature, and they kind of just kind of pass over the top. And there's a whole bunch of other ideas and concepts. So really, all we did is we just got together and we said, hey, let's go and tell people the story of Stellenbosch Cabernet. And if you guys want to see a little bit more, there's the Stellenbosch cabernet.co.za, and watch that space. We've now created a 40-page Bible of everything about Stellenbosch Cabernet. We're busy writing up the history of Cabernet in South Africa and in Stellenbosch, and listening to the likes of my dad and Kevin Arnold and Jan Boland, Neil Ellis, and those legends in the industry, and we'll just be kind of telling our story, which is the easy thing to do if you know that your wines are as good as they are and as we tasted this evening. So yeah, easy job to do, and to just go out and tell people what we're about. And we're very much not a secret society. Everybody and anybody in Stellenbosch who makes Cabernet can be part of it, and for that reason we've got a lot of members, and everybody just who loves Cabernet gets involved.
Well, it's been a pleasure to tell part of that story this evening. I love the fact that you speak about bringing in that knowledge, that history from that older generation, the Etienne Riche, the Kevin Arnold, the Jan Boland, the David Higgs. And to that end, just before we get a final vote on the vintage, David, last word on the world of Cabernet Sauvignon?
Well, as I said, it's my favorite varietal. Well, South African varietal for sure. I'm amazed how. I mean, obviously, it depends on from wine estate to wine estate. They're in very different regions, but the 15s were preferable to me. And again, you know, the 17s, nothing wrong with them, but maybe just slightly bigger, slightly almost I don't want to say fruitier, but they're just a little bit more obvious. Where maybe quite lean on the 15s, which I really enjoyed. You'll notice that I've finished most of the 15s.
All right, great selection. Ronaldo, if we can bring everybody back up on screen just for a final, and we'll get a last very democratic show. So just the hands in the air. Those people who feel 15 is the killer vintage. Those people are backing to triumph overall.
Yeah.
This goes up to the United Nations Sauvignon.
Yeah.
All right. Just really a huge thank you to all of you. It's been a really special show. We get to do so much on Dan Really Likes Wine. It's some really special people, and it's always fantastic. I think today to get 5 of the very best to talk about wine that I think to most people, it's all Stellenbosch Cabernet Sauvignon must all taste the same. To understand the intricacies, the differences, the subtleties, the nuance of the wine is so important. So thank you. We look forward to supporting the collective. Christo, I did get your email. I've been working on the secret handshake. I should have it ready next time I see you. I'll be drinking plenty more Cabernet Sauvignon from both of those years and many more. I'm really looking forward to the new vintages. So to Morné, to Louis, to Rudger, to Christo, to Abrie, and of course to David Higgs. Guys, thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of Harvest. Abrie, good luck with the fast sessions at the beach house. And we look forward to having you all back on Dan Really Likes Wine again very soon.
Thanks, Dan.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
So there we go. That wraps us up for Dan Really Likes Wine. What a show. That was just that was so much fun, wasn't it?
I love it. I love comparing the different vintages and lining wines up. And we were both privileged to spend some time with Ken Forrester with the FMCs this week, or this last week, when we were in our Monday last week, and to line up 8 vintages of FMC and like 2 different vintages or 5 different estates. It's incredible.
It is the delight that is wine. And if you do take a delight in wine, then you need to be part of the Pick and Pay Wine Club. You should be. If you're not, well, why not? It's free of charge, and it offers you the chance to get so much cool stuff. 3 times the smart shopper points on every single wine, 20% of 10 different great wines every month. Plus, you get 25% off a case and off a Magnum. There are competitions. This month, a super one with Durbanville Hills. And there is also a chance to be part of great events. Simply send your smart shopper number to 36775 and bang, free of charge. You're a member of that Pick and Pay Wine Club. And remember, 6 bottles or more, buying online, absolutely free delivery. Speaking of that competition with Durbanville Hills, we will have Martin, the winemaker from Durbanville Hills, a cellar master, on the show on Thursday as part of it. And also this week, some really cool stuff from the team at Coleman. And if you missed last week, we still have up on the website and our social media channels that Verticals tasting with Constantia Glen, as we look through the 2 down in Constantia with Justin Van Beek. That does it for myself and David. We've got to rush off and become Mexicans for the night as we hang out with Megan and the team from DHL with a global cooking and wine extravaganza around the world. We'll see you back again, or certainly I will, on Thursday with Durbanville Hills, amongst others. Keep supporting, keep drinking South African wine. Remember, no country does it better. From David and myself, cheers.
Cheers.